I'm Ed Northam, if you don't remember, vegetation lead on the planning team here at Tonto. I'm going to talk about the vegetation as a resource. It's just one, pretty much generically. Tonto borders extend from, vegetation borders extend from south of the Salt River, is desert community, goes all the way north to the Mogollon Rim into conifer country, moist conifer country, a change of several thousand feet doing that. As we've noted before, we have a tremendous amount of habitat differences with that kind of span of environment. So, this diverse plant population that we have creates a really complicated, complex decision-making process when it comes to time to decide how we're going to manage those resources. So how do we do that? Ecological Response Units, ERUs, is basically what I'm going to call them as we go through this. That entity is the site potential, vegetative site potential, plus the historical or normal natural disturbance regime. What would a community look like if we weren't here, basically? Examples of Tonto ERUs include the desert communities, semi-desert grasslands, interior chaparral, Madrean ensil woodlands, and Madrean pine oak woodlands. These five cover 90% of our area. So these are our major ones. These are the ones that really we pay attention to. Now we pay attention to all of them, but these are the ones that most people deal with when they use forest services. Now, look at the example of one. And by the way, before I forget it, when you get the chance tonight when we break, this right here is a map of our ERUs. And there's a light green one in here. I know you can't see it right now. This is the one that we're going to talk about for a few seconds here. The Chaparral, the interior Chaparral. Now, what is it? Occupies about 544,000 acres of that 2.9 million was mentioned earlier. So it's significant, 19% of the land area. It occurs from about 3,000 to 6,000 feet where deserts change into woodlands. And they're dominated by shrubs, not trees. Short vegetation, in other words. Forms dense, really close packed, shaded patches. And in doing that, it competes very well against other plant species, including some of our non-natives. But in a mature stand of chaparral, basically you don't have grasses and forbs under the canopies. It needs fire to generate or germinate its seeds. It's just that's the way it's fire adapted. It comes back from fire very well. Sometimes or in the range of 7 to 13 months, years to go from that bare burnt ground back to pre-burn conditions. That's much faster than our other plant communities. So it's safe to call it fire adapted. Now, we've talked a little bit about this, but what we will do then with that particular ERU is look at current conditions. What's it like out there right now? What does it look like compared to the other chaparrals that are around us? Prescott, Coronado have a lot. Where does ours fit in that statewide picture? What are the stressors and what things disturb this ERU? And what did it look like before we got here? And so we take that information and hopefully, with some help from you, put together an estimate of where we're at currently with that ERU. And we'll do it for each ERU on the forest. And then try to make some predictions about where it's going. Things we're going to look at that we need to measure or estimate anyway: overstory composition and structure, patch size, coarse woody debris, snags, fire regimes, climate. Now, if you look there and you see the C's, that means those are characteristics. Well, we also have the distressors. And climate can be both characteristic or a stressor, as is the invasive species and insects and diseases. And this is where, hopefully, the public will help us out. Vegetation ecological characteristics that are impacted by stressors: things such as increasing density of forests and woodlands, because we don't burn, or traditionally haven't burned like it did naturally. Now we're reaping the fire of that now with our density fires that or generated fires that we have. So we have these unnatural fire regimes that are so destructive and cover such large areas. We have an increasing, ongoing introduction of non-native species, both plants and animals. Decreasing soil moisture due to drought is another stressor. And that sets up things like some of our insect problems, because our pines, bark beetle example, they don't have the moisture they need to have the sap they need to keep the bark beetle down. Higher temperatures, evapotranspiration is what's being affected and sets up the bark beetle problem. And then grasslands in places are trending away from a nice grassland to a grassland that's being contaminated by unnatural population levels of some of our shrubs. And some of those shrubs are natives. So we've got weeds out there that are not necessarily foreign vegetation. Some of our junipers can be really quite weedy. So with that, I'll close.